Imagine standing on a quiet ranch, the sun dipping low behind the mountains, when a woman's trembling voice breaks the silence. "I took it off. Please," she cried, her eyes wide with desperation. And in that single moment, the rancher froze in shock, not knowing what truth he was about to uncover or what choice he'd be forced to make. Friends, if you love stories filled with twists, heartbreak, and raw emotion, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel right now, because what you're about to hear will hold your heart until the very last line. Out on the sprawling Carson Ranch, life for Cole Carson had always been built around silence, discipline, and survival. As the only heir to his late father's land, Cole worked from dawn till the last glimmer of starlight, his rugged hands never clean of dust, his boots always scuffed by the earth he fought to preserve. People in town admired him for his grit. But they whispered, too, for though Cole was strong, his heart had long been fractured. Years ago, tragedy had taken his fiancée, and since then he'd locked away every soft part of himself, burying them beneath the weight of cattle drives and endless acres of land. Yet fate has a way of testing even the strongest walls. On a particularly stormy night, with the wind slicing through the valley and rain hammering the roof of his barn, Cole discovered something, or rather someone, that would unravel everything. A woman stumbled onto his property, clothes torn, hair plastered to her face, her eyes wild with fear. She looked no older than 25, fragile, but burning with a desperation that struck him deeper than the storm's fury. "Help me," she whispered hoarsely before collapsing at his feet. Cole lifted her carefully, carrying her into the barn office, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? And what danger chased her with such intensity? Hours passed before she stirred by the fire he'd lit. Her name, she said in broken syllables, was Emily. No last name, no story, at least not one she was ready to tell. Cole studied her with guarded eyes. Yet something in her trembling voice, the way it carried both strength and unbearable sorrow, stirred something long buried inside him. For days, Emily stayed at the ranch, slowly regaining strength. Cole noticed how she avoided mirrors, how she flinched at sudden noises, how her fingers sometimes curled around a delicate silver chain hidden beneath her shirt. Then one evening, as the sky turned violet and the cattle grazed quietly by the fence line, it happened. Emily stood on the porch, pale as moonlight, her hands clutching that chain as if it were a lifeline. She turned to Cole, her lips trembling, tears spilling faster than she could wipe them away. "I took it off," she sobbed, her voice breaking like glass. "Please, I took it off." Cole froze, his chest tightening, his breath halting as if the very air had been stolen from his lungs. For in her palm dangled a ring, a wedding ring golden and worn. The truth flashed through his mind. She was someone's wife, someone who had hurt her, someone who would come searching. Emily dropped to her knees, her tears striking the wooden porch as she clutched his boots. "Don't send me back. Please don't let him find me." Her body shook with sobs, the weight of her confession spilling into his heart. Cole's mind thundered with conflict. Every instinct screamed at him to protect her. But every law in the county demanded otherwise. Harboring her could mean trouble, could mean violence at his doorstep. But watching her break apart before him, Cole knew he couldn't turn her away. Yet what move could he make? What chance did a lone rancher have against the storm that was surely coming? Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a choice that would test not only his strength, but the very core of who he was. And as Emily's secret unraveled, it would drag them both into a battle between past scars and the desperate hope of a second chance at life. Chapter 2. The silence that followed Emily's cry was heavy enough to crush the stars above them. Cole stood rooted, staring at the gold ring glinting in her palm, his heart pounding like hooves on dry earth. That single object told him everything and nothing at once, an anchor to a life she was running from. A life too dark for her to name aloud. He knelt slowly, his callous hand gently closing hers around the ring, not in acceptance, but in understanding. "You're safe here," he said finally, though inside doubt clawed at him. Safe? For how long? The Carson ranch was remote, yes, but word always traveled through the town quicker than wildfire. A woman like Emily couldn't hide forever. Days turned into nights, and with each passing hour, the fragile threads between them began to weave into something deeper. Cole found himself drawn to her laughter, soft, fleeting, like rain on dry soil, and to the way she quietly helped mend fences, tend horses, and bring light back to a place that had been shadowed for too long. Yet her eyes always carried storms, and her silence carried scars. One night, as coyotes howled in the distance, Emily finally let her voice break free. "He wasn't always cruel," she began, staring into the fire. But when the cruelty came, it never left. She spoke of a husband who wore charm in public and rage in private. A man whose power stretched across counties, whose wealth made him untouchable. She spoke of escape attempts crushed, of bruises hidden under sleeves, of nights where she prayed for a miracle. And when the miracle never came, she became her own, slipping away into the storm until her trembling feet carried her to Cole's land. Cole listened, every word searing his chest, every tear cutting deeper than the barbed wire fences he worked daily. And in that moment, his choice was made, not with logic, but with the fierce, undeniable instinct of a man who had once lost everything and would not let it happen again. The days that followed were laced with tension. A stranger had been spotted in town asking questions, flashing Emily's photograph, stirring whispers that reached Cole's ears through the general store's gossip. It wouldn't be long before boots stomped up the dirt road leading to the Carson ranch. Emily begged him to let her leave to keep himself safe. But Cole only shook his head. "You're not running anymore," he told her firmly. "Not while I'm breathing." And then the night came, the night when headlights slashed across the fields, when truck doors slammed and voices called her name with cruel authority. Emily froze, fear clutching her throat. But Cole stood tall on the porch, rifle resting across his arm, his voice steady as stone. "She's not yours to hurt anymore." What followed was a storm of confrontation, words sharpened like knives, threats laced with venom, and the cold knowledge that standing against such power could cost Cole everything. But in his heart, he knew there was no other path. He had already lost once, he would not lose again. Emily, trembling behind him, watched as the rancher she had once seen as a stranger became her shield, her desperate hope, her chance at freedom. And in that desperate stand, something unspoken passed between them, something stronger than fear, deeper than pain, brighter than any darkness they had ever known. Whether the law would side with them, whether danger would haunt them tomorrow, none of that mattered in that fragile, blazing moment. What mattered was that she was no longer alone and he was no longer broken. Friends, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like these remind us that love can rise from ashes and even the deepest wounds can heal when courage dares to take one desperate move.